Folks, what's going on? We're out in the shop today. I'm waiting on Uncle Ted. He's going to help us repair the trim on our quarter windows on this 2004 Comp Orange GT. Now, if you're in the same boat as we are, where we're restoring the car, we want to make it look better. If you're wanting to do the same, we're going to show you some very simple tips on what you can do to potentially repair your trim on the quarter window, okay? Now, not every quarter window can be saved. If it's too far gone, you're gonna have to use your best judgment to whether or not these can be fixed, these can be restored, okay? If the pitting is severe, you're just gonna have to take them off the car, go to the junkyard, and get you another set. But for the sake of our car, we're starting to develop just some light pitting. This can be sanded down. We can throw some high build primer on there, get it sanded down, clean it, and then shoot it in trim black. So that's what the topic today is. We're gonna show you guys the quick and easy steps on what you need to do to repair your quarter windows in your 94 to 04 Mustang.
It could be the string puppet, and I'm just
all right, so I finally got Uncle Ted out of his hole. Let's get serious. Ted, what do we gotta do first? We're repairing our quarter windows on our 04 GT here. Ours are in the car. They can do this with them out of the car if they're doing like some crazy restoration, or for the sake of what we're doing, we have them left in the car.
Well, first of all, it's preparation. It's all about preparation. As you can see, you can check the damages to see if you need filler or whether you can just sand it out.
So for the sake of what we have here, what we're working with, this can be fixed.
Oh yeah.
Cool. Well, what do we need to do first?
Get some masking tape. Probably put against the edge for our preparation for sanding, and also prep it with some solvent, maybe some mild solvent like an alcohol or something like that. Rubbing alcohol would be fine. Denatured alcohol, as you one would say.
All right, let's do it.
Using a little bit of denatured alcohol, which is inexpensive. You can buy smaller jugs of it. But...
All right, so step one, we're giving it a thorough wipe now.
Yeah.
But they could use like an automotive grade prep spray,
yeah,
or something.
Just a mild solvent of any kind would work. As long as it removes the wax and grease and like armor all and such. Prep, you know.
All right, Uncle Ted, what do we got here? This is your first step in sanding?
Yes, we're going to be prepping, sanding, and use the rough surface.
Okay, what grit are we working with?
We're starting with 220 grit.
Okay.
This is wet or dry, which you could use it either way. You could wet sand it, actually still cut it pretty good. It's rough enough to cut fast and get the imperfections out. If you use a real fine grit paper, it'll take you a lot longer in the surface and possibly more, you know, tribulation.
Gotcha. Now, is this a condition by condition basis on where you would start in terms of what grit you're using?
Yeah.
Like if somebody's wasn't as severe as ours, which ours really isn't severe in this case, but if somebody's wasn't as bad as ours, they could maybe start with like a 400 grit, or something like that. Okay.
Yeah. First, we'll need to mask. You definitely don't want to sand it just freehand.
Yeah, that's the last thing you want to do is scratch glass.
Yes, and sandpaper really is not friendly to glass.
Of course, you don't want to scratch the paint either.
Yeah.
But
you use some consecutive overlapping masking tape to bring it back. You want plenty of distance. If you just put one piece of paper on there, odds are you're still going to scratch it back here with a little piece of your overlap. You really have to watch the overlap.
And so all we're doing right now, we're just creating us a good barrier for our sandpaper. We're not masking any of the car off yet because we're not shooting primer. We're not shooting our trim black paint yet, correct?
That's right. So you can remask it, but sometimes if it's good, you know, you can leave it on there and use it in the final, you know, preparation. Here's an extra step. I want to be sure to protect the paint. Give it a little extra covering for that. Overlapping the quarter panel even. It doesn't really hurt to overkill on the masking tape.
No. All right, so we're going to take our 220. And what's the trick here? As flat as possible. Don't apply a lot of pressure.
Yeah, don't apply a lot of pressure and just evenly sand it. Surface. And you can use a little cross strokes or what they call a cross hatch, and sand the whole entire surface. Don't just sand the damaged area. That way you get a kind of an even cut.
Our 220's putting in work.
Yeah, it already immediately cuts the surface. As you can see, it's bringing it off. You want to do your edges also, because a lot of times the edge will have may have a little damage in there too. And you want it to adhere. You want adhesion on your paint coats, the final.
Gotcha. And so guys, that's why it's important to mask this far back, or as far back as you want. You know,
as you can see how close I'm getting to the glass.
Yes.
Just from sanding it alone. Same with the panel. That's like having insurance on your car, not. It's just a little insurance on a freshly painted car.
There you go. So basically with the 220 grit, you're gonna go until all of this pitting is level.
Yeah, you'll sand until you feel that it feels smooth with that grade level of paint. If not, you may need to use a little tiny bit of filler of some sort. The type of filler you'd use is like a 2-part glazing putty.
Gotcha. And just fill those imperfections and fill that pitting.
Fill the pitting only itself and then sand it, thoroughly. Which you probably wouldn't have to fill in much because it's just tiny particles. But typically, if it's not too bad, with the right amount of sanding and preparation, you'll be able to just sand it and prime it possibly and paint it. And you can come back occasionally and hit it with your prep solvent again also.
Reevaluate your surface.
Yeah.
Clean off any sanding, particle buildup, residue, absolutely.
And you can, like you said, reevaluate how much you've sanded so far.
All right, well, folks, we're gonna let Ted go at this 220. Once we feel like we've made some headway, we'll pick the camera back up and show you guys the progress. Okay, so we've gone our first round of 220. We're doing a thorough wipe now with our denatured alcohol or our prep solvent. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna inspect what our surface looks like now.
We found a small chip here, which we may need to sand a little bit more. So what we'll do, we'll sand it some more, and we'll be prepping for the primer.
And what did you tell me off camera about overdoing an area?
Don't over sand that area. If you sand that little spot, a chip or a spot out, you want to sand the area around it also. Not too much, but enough to even it out so you don't focus directly upon that one spot. To promote adhesion, you'll want to sand a little spot or two that you don't have sanded. You want it all flat. You'll know your surface is done whenever you have it all flat.
Gotcha, so like you told them before, just because the area isn't damaged, you still want to sand it to promote adhesion.
Yes, for your surfacers, which is paint and primer and such. You'll have a little pitting, but you'll know you'll fill it with primer. Preparation, you'll use your masking paper, some paper here.
But newspaper, drop cloth, really anything suitable for painting would work, right?
Yes.
Because I don't even know if anybody gets the newspaper anymore.
No. I would say probably not. But you can purchase craft paper at any store practically, even at the dollar store I think even carries it.
And now you don't have to mask the whole car, right? You just got to mask just the general area.
Yeah, I would say 2 to 3 feet area around the place that you're painting.
Okay. And this is automotive grade tape?
Actually this right here is just actually house tap masking tape, but what's against the paint surface is automotive grade.
Okay. And, and automotive grade is key because you were saying that
it's recommended
because the primer or the top coat or paint would bleed through.
Yes.
That paint.
Yeah.
Or that tape.
Regular masking tape, it will bleed through. But automotive grade is made for solvents and such, resist solvents.
All right, we'll let Uncle Ted finish taping and masking all this off, and we'll get you guys back in the mix. All right, so we got everything masked off. Like Uncle Ted said, you don't have to go crazy. You don't have to mask the whole car. Just, 2-3 feet past where you're working. Obviously, well-lit, well-ventilated area. You'll want to do another wipe with the prep solvent to free any last sanding debris, dust, etc. And then we're going to shoot this with some primer. Ted, is it a specific primer we're about to shoot here?
Not necessarily. It's just a lacquer-based aerosol.
Automotive grade?
Automotive grade filler primer. Always shake it up real good and test on the side. Don't spray the first pattern you spray. You don't spray directly on your work. Get your primer started. Make sure you got it coming out of the can correctly good. Shake it. If you think you hadn't shaken it enough, shake it some more. Okay, now here goes the primer.
Now the objective here, this is light coats. We're not laying this on, right?
Yeah, you apply just light coats.
And of course, the light coats, that's allowing the primer to settle in the porous areas and fill them.
Yes, and allow also the solvents to bleed from the primer. You get your first good coats of primer on, you want to let it dry. Allow it to about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on your temperature.
Yeah, because relative humidity, all that plays
major role
into drying time. So, of course, climates are different everywhere. So, there's really no clear-cut answer as to how long something will take to dry. Okay, so that's coat 1. We'll come back probably, what do you say, 5 minutes?
Yeah, give or take. 5 minutes, and give or take, and we'll come back and apply another coat.
All right, so 5 minutes have passed, and we're gonna throw on our second coat of filler primer.
This time you can get a little more aggressive with your next coats as you fill it, because you've already kind of started the tooth, you know, from the first mild coats.
Okay. And then same flash time, right? In between
same
all
flash
these coats,
time, about 5 minutes.
Man, what's on your shirt? What is that?
That is a car that's sitting in my garage right now, waiting for me to come home to her this weekend.
Woohoo! Heck yeah. All right, so third coat.
You can apply this third coat wet, I mean, because you know you've already got a good base going.
Gotcha. So first two light coats, and then now our third one, a little heavier. Get you guys with some light on it, and you can see that it is substantially more wet.
Yes.
Than the
And starting
previous
to build
coats.
imperfections.
Yes. The surface is starting to smooth out a little bit. Now, how many coats do we need to go before we have to sand this again? I guess it's really dependent on the severity of your damage.
Depending on the severity of the damage, you may want to apply a couple more coats.
So we'll probably do 1 or 2 more.
Yes. And then we'll put some sanding on it again.
Okay. Well, we'll let this flash and come back for coat 4. It's going to be a little wet as well.
Yes. There you go.
All right, coat 4. Dang, that's laying down nice. It's hard to probably tell on camera here, but of course we still have our little slight divot there that is still present. There's still some, but most of this should sand down like Uncle Ted's saying. We'll be good to go. So another 5 to 10 minutes, let this flash, and we'll come back. So we're gonna go 5 coats.
Yeah.
Here we are again, 5th coat.
Again, shaking your can of primer really good. The same way you apply a good wet coat.
All right, we're gonna wait about 30 minutes, 5th coat, and we'll come back, we'll inspect it. And if it's dry enough, what'd you say, Uncle Ted? We're gonna hit this with a 400 grit.
We'll start with a little 400 grit, which is a less aggressive cut.
And the 220 we were using first. Once we do our 400, we'll of course inspect that. And if we have to shoot a couple more coats of primer, we can. Well, we'll catch you guys back in 30 minutes. It'll be real quick. Okay, so our 5th coat, we actually went ahead and let it go for about an hour. So what's next, Uncle Ted? Looks like you got a spray bottle with some water. What grit sandpaper is that?
This is 400.
400 wet. Now you don't have to saturate it. You just need it wet for lubrication. And looks like you're hardly putting any pressure at all. You're just grazing the surface.
Barely.
Just a generic spray bottle with some water, folks. 400 grit sandpaper, very light pressure. Remember, we're just wanting to level what we've done thus far. We're not necessarily wanting to remove anything. I mean, technically, yes, we're removing something because we're sanding it, but you know, we're not going crazy here. Wow.
Looking pretty smooth.
Looking real smooth. Looks like we have a few areas of concern here. Still a little tacky too. Right here. And there's some small divots up in this area right here.
So what we'll do is we'll allow this to dry a little more, then we'll come back and sand it some more. It should be ready to finish after that.
We're round 2 of sanding, so we're stepping, we're going a little bit finer. P600, so that's 600 grit. Our first round of sanding, we did what, Uncle Ted? 400?
400.
This would be wet application as well?
Yes, it'll be wet application. Just a little bit of water, not a whole lot. Just enough to lubricate.
Okay. And same process applies as last time?
Yeah, light pressure, the same purpose. You keep it as flat as possible. Good strokes. Always too sand your edges. If you apply any kind of primer or anything like that, your edges are going to have build on them too. And little pad.
And you just wipe that with a lint-free cloth?
Yes. Final will be like a wipe with a lint-free cloth, a little bit of water. And if you really feel like it needs it, you can come in and give it a little bit of a solvent wipe again, but not totally necessary if it's clean and you don't have any oils.
All right, so that was round 2 of sanding. Wet application, 600 grit. We're gonna wipe off our residue. And then what's next?
Should be ready for paint.
So we finally made it to the end of the road. We're gonna be spraying some trim black paint. You want to see that, Uncle Ted? This is SEM. To us, this is the best OEM matched coating, as you can see right there on the label, for automotive trim components. We currently sell this on our site, and this stuff is super legit.
Same way you would do with the primer. You want to give a little test here on the side, you know? Start with a light coat. Allow that to flash down. Not necessarily covering the whole panel, you know, the surface.
Okay, what's our tack time? 5-10 minutes, is that what
5 to
SEM
10
recommends,
minutes.
of course? That's gonna be dependent on your ambient temperature and your relative humidity. It's about 90 degrees in here, probably about 40% humidity, so we're kind of within that window of a 5 to 10 minute
That's right.
flash time. Coat 1. Get you guys on the second one. All right, Uncle Ted, second coat time.
Second coat.
Don't mess up.
And the good thing about that, now that you mentioned that, this flat black paint is pretty forgiving. Like if you do mess up, don't be mad. Don't throw it away. What are you gonna do? Just let it dry, sand it again, and then refinish it.
In the event that did happen for somebody, what grit sandpaper are they using?
You'd come back with another 600, just a 600 grit sandpaper.
Dry or wet?
Wet would probably be preferred, you know. You could do it dry sand also,
Gotcha.
but either way.
So if they laid it on a little heavy, they had a little run or a drip,
yeah,
they could come back with
like
some
that.
600 wet and level it back out. Okay, so that's good for coat 2?
That's good for coat 2.
All right. Man, that's looking good.
Pretty smooth. This will be a coat number 3, should be the final coat.
Okay, third and final coat.
You want it good and wet. Depending on your application too, upon the temperature outside, a lot of humidity, you'll have to spray light coats all the way through.
Gotcha, Uncle Ted. So we're gonna go ahead and let this dry, let this set up. What do you want to say, maybe a half hour? And we'll pull the masking off of it?
Yep.
All right, folks, got Ted back here with me. Moment of truth. It's time to take the masking off. Now, you don't want to go at this super aggressive, you know, blowing a china closet type stuff, right? You want to be...
No, nice and easy. Just your stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. That way your paper doesn't overlap. Sometimes you touch your paint, even if it's dry, it still needs like 24 hours before it's totally, you know, handleable, or at least, you know, 12 hours. Looking better already. Whenever you're doing your removal of the tape, and you get close to your line of your area that's really close to the edge of the glass or such, you know, something close to a real small edge, this is okay just to kind of tear it away. But your last little piece that's really close to the edge, you'll want to tear it away from the surface, from the painting. Just kind of the way I'm doing here. See, because if you pull like this, you're going to overlap. You pull straight, you may tear. So you pull it away kind of like that, and it has a better removal. And there we are. And last little protective tape for the
we can say it's all done. Wow, look at that, Uncle Ted. It's like you've done this before.
Maybe once or twice.
We weren't chasing perfection, but I would say that this is in the 95 percentile of how good this looks. I mean, this looks really good. And once we get the car all back together, of course, clean out some of this compound from getting painted and whatnot. Oh man, it's gonna look so good.
She's beautiful.
Well, cool. Thanks, Uncle Ted.
Thank you.
Looks awesome. We'll catch you later. All right, people, that's going to wrap it up for our quarter window resto for a 1994 to 2004 Mustang. If you value this information, like the video. Subscribe to our channel to see more videos like this one, and be sure those notifications are turned on. That way you're notified every time we release something new. And until we see you in the next one, you know what to do for all things 94 to 04 Mustang. Keep it right here with the real enthusiasts, LMR.com.